Shalom, WJC family. It's time for our weekly Torah talk, a pre-Devar Torah for this coming Shabbat, when we will read Parshat Shelach Licha, one of the great episodes in the book of Bamidbar. Great not meaning good, but great meaning a very compelling story. In this story, God commands Moses to appoint leaders of each tribe, one from each of the 12 tribes. Remember, not a Levite, because the Levites are not included in the 12 tribes. Levi is subbed out for Yosef's grandsons, Ephraim and Manasseh. So one representative of each of the tribes who will inherit the land that they are about to go scout, and says, go scout the land and come back and give us a report. Now, each of these individuals is referred to as a nesi'im, a prince or a leader, president in today's Hebrew. And the question is, what makes them a leader, and what can we learn about leadership from their story? Because they are failures. They go out into the land, they come back with an ill report. They say the land is a land that is flowing with milk and honey, and it's got beautiful, gigantic fruit, as made famous by that image of two individuals carrying a bushel of grapes on their shoulders, a gigantic, person-sized bunch of grapes. But they say the people there are giants. The rest of Israel, the Israelites, get all upset and they rebel against Moses and Aaron and Joshua and Caleb, 2 of the 12 tribes who come back with a more positive report. And because of this sin, they are not able to go into the land of Canaan. That whole generation, except Joshua and Caleb, will not be allowed to enter the land. There's this episode, and then at the end of the parsha, unrelated, there's an episode where some guy goes out on Shabbat and starts gathering sticks, and nobody knows what to do with him. And so Moses goes and asks God, and God says he should get the punishment of stoning for violating the Shabbat. So I want to look at these two stories, and I want to talk a little bit about leadership. Because what is the problem that makes what the spies did so bad? Did they really tell a lie? They went in and they said, they came out, they said, these guys are strong. There's a mighty nation there. That is not in and of itself false. And the Kutzker Rebbe has a comment on this. He says, a statement does not have to be a lie, or if a statement is not a lie, that does not necessarily validate it as a truth. Right? Just because that person doesn't actually lie doesn't mean that their statement has integrity. Doesn't mean that they've thought through what their statement means in this context. I've been thinking a lot about leadership lately. Usually when we talk about leadership, we talk about the ability to see the factors in front of us, to understand what's going on, and to have a clear strategy, a plan for moving forward and moving an organization forward, a people forward, even your own family forward. That's leadership. But I was talking to my friend, Admiral Herm Shalansky, the other day, and we were talking about those ideas of leadership, being able to take in the right factors and sift through lots of information and make the right decision to move forward. That has been sort of negated over these last few months because we've been in the dark. It's very hard to look at what's going on in the world and to understand, particularly I'm speaking about the pandemic and the coronavirus, and understand what the right thing to do is. All kinds of different information coming in from all different places. And there's so much noise now. And even when it comes to the recognition of systematic inequality in this country, a lot of people were caught off guard. Now, maybe they should be, maybe they shouldn't be. We could talk about that. But so much information and misinformation floating around. How do we know what decision to make? How to move forward? How do leaders lead when the usual cues they get from the world are not there? How do you steer a ship through fog? So I want to look at the story of the spies and the story of this individual collecting sticks on Shabbat at the end of the parsha, and to help us understand the kind of leadership that is called for now. As individuals, as citizens, as many of us are leaders of organizations of one sort or another, businesses, volunteer organizations. And I want to say that when there are no outward signs, when you're steering a ship through fog, when you are in the darkness and you don't have those cues, there's only one thing you can fall back on, and that is the thing that these spies forgot. And that is their values. That is principles. When you are an organization and you have no other cues, you got to start by doing what you know. And these leaders in our story, they forget the most fundamental thing it means to be an Israelite, the most fundamental thing it means to be a Jew. And that is to be in relationship with God. They come out and they tell a truth. And we often say honesty. The most important thing for a leader is honesty. Well, what does honesty really mean here? They come back and they tell the truth. The people are strong. And yet, they forget a bigger truth. God is stronger. And God fights on their side. Joshua and Caleb, they come forward. But the damage is done. They've planted the seed of doubt, the lack of faith in the hearts and the eyes of their people. And although they haven't exactly lied, they haven't told the full truth. And in that manipulation of the truth, in that forgetting where they came from, in their forgetting that they are a nation in close relationship with God, in a covenantal relationship with God, they lead their people astray. Because leadership, even more than being based on smarts and intelligence and wisdom, although that's necessary, and even more than being placed on honesty and transparency, although that's important, at its very, very root, leadership needs to be based on the values of the organization or the people that you're leading, and on your own values. In this case, the values are faith. Joshua and Caleb remember that, but it's not enough. It's too late. And the 10 spies, in their lack of faith, that central cardinal principle, their lack of understanding of relationship with something greater than themselves that will work for them, that completely destroys their leadership. And we are at risk of that, right? Those who are able to navigate times like these are the ones who are able to turn to their principles and say, okay, I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. I don't know if it's going to be fog or darkness or a storm. I don't know if the situation is going to get worse or going to get better. But I know this. Here are 2 or 3 things that I believe in that define who I am. These are the values that I live by. And if I stick to those values, I will get my ship to the other side of this storm, to the other side of this fog, to the other side of this darkness. And that ship could be our organizations. It could be those kinds of things, but it's also our families. And I think that's why this story about the man gathering sticks slides in at the end. You know, no one knows what to do with him, which is weird because we know breaking Shabbos is not allowed. We've been told. So why don't they know what to do with him? It seems that they're, okay, fine, if the whole people breaks Shabbos, that's a problem. But there's just one person, just doing what they do. How much of an impact can one person have? By the way, that is something that we say, they have their individual freedoms, their individual rights, let them do what they want to do. But ultimately, the Torah says, no, this person has the same punishment as the nesi'im, as the leaders of the tribes, the same punishment as anyone else. Because every individual in some ways is a leader. Every individual influences someone else. And therefore we all have to live principled lives. We do have a responsibility to one another. So those fundamental principles that need to guide us today, principles of faith, principles of the interconnectedness of all of us, principles that all people are created in God's image, principles that tzedek tirdof, that the pursuit of justice needs to itself be just, the officers of justice need to itself be just, all of those basic fundamental principles. We need to put them as stakes in the ground and say we won't get distracted. All of this noise, all of the darkness, all of the fog will not lead us astray. We will not be like these miraglim who lose those fundamental principles and therefore are left adrift in a storm. But instead, we will stick to what we know is important. And by doing so, be able to steer our ship, our families, our communities through this very difficult time. May we all be able to stick to our principles. May we all have a beautiful Shabbat. I wish you a Shabbat Shalom.